has a meeting at 7 o'clock, so we're going to kind of make sure that we have enough time for questions and answers. I apologize for my back. I'm going to just introduce myself while I'm here. My name is Kathy Bosco. I'm the Janesville City Council President. I'd like to welcome the Beloit City Council here as well. Charles, if you want to introduce yourself just quickly, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Charles Haynes, President of the Beloit City Council, and really this is a wonderful opportunity to come up here to Janesville and enjoy comradeship and discussions with our colleagues and neighbors.
Okay, great. Well, we're really glad that you could come here. We hope you enjoy the venue as well. And I think to start, because there are some new council members from the last time that we met, I'd like to ask the Janesville City Council. We'll start with you, Russ. Okay. If you could just say who you are, and sure, if you could share how many years you've been on the council, just let people know where we're at.
Russ Stever. I've been with the council on and off since 2001. I'm on my 5th term, and have loved dealing with the sidewalk issue ever. I just can't tell you how much fun that's been. So, economic development, that's a secondary thing.
Jim Van de Bogart. I'm in my 5th term on the Beloit City Council as well.
Deb Adams, Vice President, and I'm in my 1st term, which will end in April next year.
Duane Severson, 9 weeks. And Russ, thank you for sharing about the sidewalk. I really appreciate that. And 9 weeks on the council. Thank you.
Matt Keeley, I'm in my 1st year, my 1st term also.
Mark?
Mark Spreitzer, Vice President of the Beloit City Council. I'm in my 2nd year of my 1st term.
I apologize. Is there any other?
Dave Lupke from Beloit, 2nd year, 1st term.
Chuck Kincaid from Beloit, 1st term.
Well, great. Again, I'd like to welcome both the Janesville City Council and the Beloit City Council, and I think in the essence of time, without further ado, I'd like to introduce, I guess, James. Are you going to start out? Mary's here. I don't know if she's the AV person. Okay, she's the VIP. But I'm going to let you take the stage. So thank you very much.
Well, good evening, and again, thank you to the city leadership on both sides here for Beloit and Janesville for allowing to schedule a joint meeting specifically around the time frame that accommodates what we're doing. And tonight we're going to give you a thumbnail sketch of what we're doing, and we're pretty excited about it. Certainly, those of you that don't know Mary, seated to my right, Mary Wilmer, she's with M&I Bank. She is certainly an instrumental piece of our particular team here, and tonight she's going to fulfill the role of running the AV, but certainly as we go through it, if there are questions, you can feel free to ask those at that point, or if you want to wait till the end, we'll field them now. Okay, so entirely up to you folks, and if I'm getting long-winded, just give me the high sign, we'll move it along, all right?
Well, not a problem, but before you do start, I'd like to introduce Sam Liber, who's also on the Janesville City Council.
Hi.
Sorry, Sam. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No worries. Welcome. In any event, tonight we wanted to give you an overview of what's being referred to as our Rock Ready campaign. And so what we're going to do is kind of give you a thumbnail sketch of who's behind it and what it entails. And we're going to walk through some of the specific elements of it. It's something that's been in the works for several months, and we've done our homework, we've done our due diligence. We're using a lot of expertise and talent to identify target areas, to identify the right messaging points, to identifying the right vehicles or mediums to get that message out. So we're going to give you a sneak peek at what that is tonight. In any event, this is being put out underneath the banner of the Rock County Development Alliance. And essentially, the Alliance represents my office at Rock County Economic Development Agency, the City of Janesville, Vic Grassman, Forward Janesville, John Becker, Andrew Yankee, who wears 2 hats at the Greater Beloit Economic Development Corporation, as well as represents the City of Beloit, and another colleague who unfortunately is stuck on the interstate, which is another reason we need that 3rd lane. Bruce Kempner with the Line Energy tonight. He's right here. Yeah. So in any event, back in 2001, we started to look around at our competitors, and we started to look around at the war chests that our competition had, just in terms of doing market reports, in terms of doing direct communications and outreach, in terms of doing a variety of projects that kind of fall outside of the normal scope and boundary of our day in and day out economic development budgets. And so we said, you know what can we do about that? So we collectively agreed back in 2001, let's start to pool our resources. So A little bit of funds from this pot, a little bit of funds from that pot, and pretty soon we might have maybe $5,000 on a given year. Sometimes we would have that match dollar for dollar through Alliant Energy's funding mechanisms. But in any event, we would come up with 1 or 2 projects per calendar year that we felt fit well underneath our particular banner. So in any event, we made the agreement back starting in 2001 that number one, we were going to really start to share our collective expertise. You've got a group of seasoned professionals that have in excess of 75 years in the field, specifically at different capacities, federal level, state level, some outside of the state as well, urban, rural locations. So we kind of cover the gamut. We said, you know what, there's a lot of expertise to draw upon. Let's make sure that our communications are open. Let's make sure that we continue to collaborate and we're open in terms of ideas and concepts. More importantly, let's start pooling our marketing resources. And last but not least, we wanted to make sure that we could leverage our specific networks out there. So Rock Ready simply is about really ramping up our media and our public relations activity. So it kicked off on July 2nd, and it's going to continue to proceed through the end of September of this calendar year. And assuming that it's successful, and assuming that we have good feedback and good traction out there, we hope to leverage it for phase 2, phase 3, 4, and so on and so forth. There's some key things that we want to achieve. First and foremost, we want to reshape the economic development perspective that's out there. There's been a lot written about the area dating back to 2008, and what they've written for the most part, excluding our local media, which certainly has been supportive, hasn't been real positive. Obviously, with not only the announcement of General Motors leaving the area, but all the other collateral damage that's associated with the Great Recession, we had media that flocked here from overseas, and they were constantly at our door. Every time there was a plant closing announcement, everybody wanted to know what the impact was. Well, after taking all those phone calls after those 30 announcements, you kind of feel beat up after a while. But in the meantime, there was a lot of good things that was going on. Unfortunately, it wasn't near the pace or the volume or the velocity or perhaps with the right type of connotations with the industry sector that the extended media didn't want to cover for whatever reason. So we were having a difficult time getting that message out in front of people. So consequently, they thought we were a dying automotive town and that there wasn't anything positive going on. And if you look what's happened over the course of the last 2 years in particular, there has been a lot of hard work done. There's been a lot of repositioning, revitalization. There's been a lot of investment across a diverse sector of businesses here locally. People are spending money. People are hiring. People are making new products or launching new services. Things are on the upswing. Doesn't mean that we're out of the negative things that certainly everybody wants to continue to focus on, i.e. unemployment, foreclosure, some of those things. The answer is, of course not. But you know what? A lot of other areas aren't either. So we wanted to make sure we could go ahead and reshape that image. Obviously, we wanted to get out and promote the positive, relevant news out there. We wanted to address the stereotypes. Again, there's a lot of stereotypes that comes with that connotation when you have a large industry and the related industries that eventually and unfortunately leave overnight when that announcement's made. So it was essentially closed for business was the message outside in. And last but not least, we wanted to inform and educate people, again, because we think there's a lot of myths that are out there. We think that people are using statistics or references that might be couched in 2008, and they're completely not aware of what's been going on right now. So what we've decided to do and what we're doing right now is we've really enhanced as well as expanded our messaging. We've enhanced the targets as well as the type of vehicles. So this is 360 degrees. Web, email, social media, the traditional print media, as well as a combination of direct mail, phone, and email blasts. And again, we're trying to get at those decision makers themselves or those people that are in a capacity that are advising those individuals. We want to get at folks that are in the investment community. May not necessarily have a company per se, but they're looking to place capital out in the market, and they can certainly swing a big hammer when they're prepared to do so. And last but not least, we want to make sure we're getting in front of the editorial boards as well as the business reporters that are writing articles on either economic development or real estate activities. So what we've done is we've basically created a vanity URL, which is simply a redirect, and it's rockcountyready.com. This is the focal point of this particular messaging, and when the user clicks on that particular URL, they'll be directed to our media page, and this media page happens to be a standard offering right now on our other URL, which is rockcountyalliance.com, and we'll go through the distinctions in a little bit. But in any event, we want to make sure that folks have access to all the information that's out there. So first and foremost, there's a media kit that's out there. We'll go into the details of that. There's a video library. We happen to have 5 targeted videos that we've done. There's a photo gallery. There's probably 20 to 30 images that are on there. There's a Rock Ready Index, which refers to our quarterly economic dashboard that we launched just this calendar year, and hopefully we'll have Q2 2012 out shortly. There's a little bit of PR about our team, who we are, put a face with a name, and then last but not least, we've got an opportunity for folks to request more information, and we'll get into the details of that here in a minute. At this point, I'm going to transition over to Vic at this point, and then we're going to kind of take this message by committee as we go through. So you'll see a few folks rotating up and down. If Bruce is fortunate enough to get here, he'll slide in. If not, I'll jump in and pinch it for his portion as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, James. My comments will be talking about this brochure that hopefully is in your packets. It's made to, essentially the purpose is to what I call leave behind, or have a discussion about both for internal and external audiences. It's certainly an education. If you look at it, hopefully there's some discussion points. And it has something, me being a part-time musician, I really get into. It's called PA. I'm going for positive ahas. I want to startle people with that to say, oh, I never knew about this before. That's the purpose of that piece. If you look at the first, next slide please, essentially ready to grow our cost of doing business. It's quite different than the Fortune rankings. I think if you look at that a little bit, we compete very well, particularly in the Midwest, which is really our competitive states. On this side is certainly geographical advantages, and I think this is really critical because you can't relocate where you're at. But, for example, underneath the federal trucking rules, the driver can work 11 hours a day and drive 8. Do you want to spend an hour or two in congestion, or do you want to keep moving along? And you can think about all the interstates and state and federal highways that go through Janesville and certainly the rest of Rock County. It's a transportation nirvana, and I think we really need to get that point across. The next slide is land costs. And really take a look at the internal slide there. We compete very well, and if you're a company that obviously has a specific budget, either the board gave you or the owner, you don't certainly want to save if you're looking at $1 a square foot up to $400, $4, $6.50, etc. That makes a big difference because one, you can buy more land, and certainly companies always like to have a little extra land. They never know they're going to expand. And thirdly, we have as much land as they want. So I think that's really a critical point. And then add on to it, and certainly all the communities here, both Beloit and Janesville, there's a lot of community support. Through tax incremental financing, through expedited permitting, and we certainly have this shovel-ready certified site. So from a real estate perspective, we feel we're quite competitive. And then talent. When I'm working with companies, think about, again, lack of congestion. We probably have a labor shed of 60 miles in either direction, south of Rockford, over to Waukesha, close to Racine, certainly out west, and particularly for senior management, that helps answer their questions of, well, can I get this type or can I get this type? Obviously, we have a lot of more lower echelon type people that are looking for jobs, and we can promote them, certainly with the resources of the job center, etc. But I try to stress that this is a pretty open country. And when you add on certainly the UROCs and the Blackhawk Technical Colleges, there's a lot to do. Quick story, when I lived in Colorado, companies always went to hire, if you were a Midwesterner, you were a couple rungs up the ladder. Why? Because of the perceived stereotype, which is good, ag background. And they felt people from the Midwest typically work harder, and it's a true story, they do well. So we stress that, particularly if the company is not from around this area. The final slide is simply the value proposition and what we're trying to do. We tend to take things for granted. Good schools, good roads, etc. We live here every day. Well, that's not true everywhere. And so what we try to put out is we've got great road systems. The infrastructure is in place. Utilities, gas and electric. The schools, I mean, Janesville has a graduation rate of plus 90%. That's going to be really difficult to catch up with. Blackhawk Tech, UROC, UW Whitewater, UW Madison, that infrastructure is in place. Public finance. Our county and our communities are well financed. Significantly different than if you go to our neighbor to the south. And finally, our geographic location. I mentioned before, lack of congestion, but if you think about it, we can have access to about 500 miles, 1/3 of the U.S. population. You get 22% of the Canadian population. We have both rural and urban amenities. We're close to major airports, and yet you can choose 10 minutes to go fishing or 27 minutes to go to Madison. So we believe that this booklet will be able to hopefully create those positive ahas, and then we'll go on from there. Now I'd like to introduce Andrew Yankee.
Thank you, Vic. Good evening. Again, my name is Andrew Yankee. I'm the Economic Development Director for the City of Beloit. I also serve as the Executive Director of the Brewer Economic Development Corporation. The piece that Vic just talked about, we call this our prestige piece. It's actually printed. I think we printed, what, 1,000 of these? But I've been asked to spend a few minutes talking about our media kit. The media kit, we printed out a hard copy for all of you so you can take a look at it. But particular items that I'm going to talk about are not going to be printed in mass. They're going to be located on our website. It's intended that people can visit those by going to our media kit. And there's essentially 5 components to the media kit. And the first component, and again, we have handouts here, is a document that we're calling the Rock County Media Folder. And we kind of start by acknowledging the fact that we had some tough economic times here in our county in the past few years. All are very much aware that we're in the middle of a major recession. But this is where we're trying to kind of change the image with some of these documents. And what we're trying to do is to show some of the really good things that have happened in Rock County in recent years. Since 2010, we have had over 30 major economic development projects. And this has led to a capital investment of over $60 million. 3 million square feet has either been built, renovated, or leased out. And we have created over 1,500 new jobs since 2010. This particular piece highlights 10 of those major projects. We try to be diverse by showing different types of industries. We also try to show diversity throughout the county and by highlighting more than just Beloit and Janesville. The second piece in the packet is Rock County Investments piece. And this is categorized by industry segment, categorized by advanced manufacturing, food technology and processing, healthcare and medical technology, logistics, and miscellaneous projects as well. In this particular sheet, we included the company's names, their total capital investment for their projects, and what their footprint size was. On the bottom of the page is an aggregate total that shows you the total number of jobs that were created, capital investment, and square footage, whether that was new square footage or leased or renovated square footage. Our third piece is, this is the face of success, continuing to try to reinforce this message that there has been and continues to be economic activity in our county. We put this piece together really to illustrate the diversity of types of industries that we have in our county. And we decided to highlight 8 unique companies that they're trying to be showing some diversity. Our next piece is Rock County as fast as you. We think as an economic development organization, one thing that kind of sets us apart from others is our ability to react with rapidity and speed. And we want to be able to communicate this to those people that James was talking about, and make decisions and where to do site selection. It's all about speed to market, so we're highlighting 3 things in this particular piece. The first one, James talked about a little bit, is our Rock Ready Index. This is intended to be a concise collection of information and data that site selectors and decision makers can use to quickly make due diligence research projects. You don't have to go out and try to find all this information. We put it all together in one page. It includes information on our recent projects, economic indicators, real estate activity, trends, and we include information on our workforce. As James mentioned, our goal is to produce the index on a quarterly basis. We also are highlighting our certified several range sites and communicating out there that we have a history of being able to permit projects in as little as 30 days. So So we now have 3 certified sites. The Gateway Business Park in Beloit. We have a site here in Janesville, and Edmonton just finished their process for their park. 2 weeks, they'll be announcing their park being certified. We also have a section in this particular document on our virtual building program. This is a web-based application. I think city councilors from Beloit have all seen this. But basically, we work with a local architectural firm. They've designed us virtually 6 buildings. They range in size from 59,000 square feet up to 700,000 square feet. Buildings are totally designed. We have site plans for these buildings, floor plans, elevations, as well as specifications. We also give the people who go in there and take a look at this particular application, they can choose what kind of finish material they want to have on their building. Our last piece is our case histories. And basically, we took 10 projects and put together a case history on each one of those companies. We tried to be diverse. We tried to show companies that are located throughout the county. We asked, and again, the forms are consistent for each project. So we have information on the name of the company, a short description of who and what they are. We asked them what their project requirements were. We also documented what our answer or what our solution was to their problem and what was achieved for our county. Was the business located here? Was it expansion? Were new jobs created? What was the capital investment? And is there potential for future growth? And each case history ends with basically a status. So, those are my remarks. I'm going to turn over to John, who's going to talk about our deployment strategy.
Another aspect of this campaign, of course, is some advertising. And this week's Crane's Chicago Business, which is the leading business publication in the Chicago area, and they have a very prominent ad. It's in your packet too. Just north of the border, signs of change are everywhere. You're going to see variations on that theme and a variety of other media. So in addition to Crane's printed publication, of course, there's a Crane's online version. And we're doing banner ads in Crane's, in Midwest Real Estate News, and Chicago Industrial Properties. It kind of looks like this. The web page comes up for those websites. The Rock County ad is right there. A state line we share, but the bottom line, we're trying to draw attention. It's not so much a sharp stick in the eye, it's more like a kick in the shins, you know. We want it to sting just a little bit and to try to get attention, and maybe the Cranes will pick it up and write an article about it. Things of that nature. So we got the banner ads on the online versions, the printed ad, and then we have Chicago Transit Authority bus wraps in the loop down in the business community down there. So the buses are actually wrapped with a variation of that campaign. Again, we're just trying to get a lot of attention. That'll run for 2 months. The electronic publications will run for 3 months. We have 2 billboards on I-294 in the O'Hare area. Again, they do the state line we share with the bottom line. That's for 3 months, again, down in the O'Hare area. And then finally, we did some advertising on the Metro. This is the train system, of course, that gets you out to the airport and around. We do it with the train cards. When you get in, you sit down, you look up. And then also there are digital displays in the stations and that rotate, just like the digital billboards do. And so we're going to see, you're going to see some of those appear as well. So again, the advertising is only part of a much bigger puzzle, but we needed to create some buzz. We're trying to create some buzz over the next 3 months or so. So if you happen to be in that area and you see one of those buses, or you see one of those billboards, snap a picture of it and send it to us. I'd like to think I could just take a couple of days off and go down there and try to find them and take pictures. But I think this is kind of a fun part of it that ultimately will help with changing some perceptions about Rock County and, of course, Wisconsin. And you're going to cover personnel. It looks like we're going to get here because of the backup on the other side.
In any event, part of the last component of the overall Rock Ready campaign involves two specific pieces. One happens to be this thumb drive component. Again, as I opened up in my remarks, when somebody goes to our media page and jumps on there, they'll have the opportunity to go ahead and request this thumb drive. Essentially what this is this is the proverbial mother lode of the market and the economy. There are about 2 gigs worth of information on there that covers everything from the business climate to the economy, a variety of maps and maps that are of interest to users, whether they are from the education side, whether they're from the transportation side. There's a tourism guide that happens to be on there, and then of course the media kit, it's all combined on there. Bruce, if you want to catch your breath, Bruce, we're glad you made it safe and sound.
I've been sitting on the interstate with all my friends.
Exactly.
Thousands of us.
In any event, I'll let Bruce catch his breath here. But this particular piece is real handy. That way if folks either A, don't want to spend time online, or B, they want to go right to a specific topic, all they got to do is pop it in. It's all categorized by file folders. They can go right to the one they want. It's all in PDF format. Download it, send it on, all good to go. And we find this to be an extremely valuable tool when you're out making conversation with folks. And essentially, if they don't want the case, they can open it up, pop out the thumb drive, throw it in their pocket, and go. So not a lot of hassle with it. It's a nice piece to send out. This can be sent individually as well as a joint mailer when we do it. And we are going to talk a little bit about the media campaign here, and then we'll talk some of the direct mail component we're doing. In terms of the media pitching, we're specifically going after a variety of targets. Those publications that specialize in business and the economy, those that specialize construction and development, those that are economic development specific. There's a variety of trade publications, both national, Midwest, and regional level. And last but not least, those that focus on real estate, specifically on the commercial and the industrial side of the real estate market, because that's who we find to be our target audience. In any event, we're hiring this particular component out because A, this is going to take a lot of time, B, it's going to take a lot of expertise, and so we enlisted the support of Paul Hahn's Strategic Communications. Paul is a resident of Clinton, but cut her teeth out in the New York media market and has over 25 plus years of doing this particular activity. She's helped launch a lot of brand new brands out there. She's done a lot of brand connectivity as well as breathe life into older brands that need a little shot in the arm. So she's very good at what she does. She's got great connections out in the media industry. And tomorrow morning, bright and early, she's going to start hitting the phones and start hitting the email waves. Sometime, after midnight, this particular press release that's in your packet is going to go live. She's going to follow up with that, also have direct email on that, and hopefully get some traction out of that activity. Again, we want to make sure we're getting in front of those particular people that are writing articles about where the good places to be, where the good places either expand, start up, relocate, or invest because the economy is stabilized. The economy has good things going for it. And despite some of the extended attention that the state of Wisconsin has had over the course of the last year and a half, there are good things that are going on, and more importantly, quite selfishly, there are good things that are going on here, so we need to get that message out. It's going to take time and talent to make sure that that message gets received properly. Last but not least, there's a direct mail component. Again, there's a variety of cylinders that we're hitting here. You've kind of got a little bit of a scatter approach, and then you've got a very targeted approach, and the media obviously is very targeted. Direct mail is very targeted. So again, we're trying to reach those that are engaged in planning and deployment of construction and development projects, those that work in the consultant field. They could be an engineer, they could work for the banking or legal community, those that serve as the eyes and ears on the real estate front, those that own and operate the brokerage homes and houses out there. And last but not least, we want to get to the decision makers themselves, CFO, CEO, plant managers, HR, who's ever in charge of logistics. Those are the contacts that we're going after. Right? The key thing to remember is none of this would be possible but for the funding and support of Rock County 5.0. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, back in 2001, when the 5 of us got together, we were scratching around to maybe have $5,000 to do a project over the course of 12 months. And we would hope like heck that our partner with Alliant Energy would match that through one of their partnership programs. Fortunately, that environment existed, but we were limited each and every calendar year on what we could spend. To take this particular campaign on would take us about 8 years to do under the old format. But fortunately, given the resources that Mary Wilmer and Diane Hendricks as co-chairs of Rock 5.0, because of their leadership and their involvement, they were able to help us go out and raise a significant amount of money. Again, so we could speak with one voice about what our vision is and about how we are revitalizing and repositioning this economy collectively. Now, we do things separately, okay? We understand that there are needs and opportunities where we're doing things separately based on what our organizations need to have done, but we're all working towards the common outcome. And this certainly is a very visible example of how we're combining resources, combining the message, and working together towards that outcome out there. So how can you help? First and foremost, we need you to stay informed, and we need you to be engaged. Specifically, continue to be supporters and cheerleaders of economic development. Those that have been on the council in the past, those that are new, certainly both city councils have been very supportive of economic development activities. We certainly anticipate that's going to be the case moving forward, and so we'll thank you in advance for that. We also need you to be a communication conduit. You hear of something, pass it along. You want to have something validated or verified, pick up the phone, shoot us an email. Invariably, some of these conversations don't always circulate inside the company walls themselves. Sometimes you hear about it on the golf course. Sometimes you might hear about it in church. Sometimes you might hear about it at the grocery store. So make sure that you're informed and connected on that front. There's a wealth of resources and expertise that our team has. Nobody has any egos here, so we're able to work together towards a common outcome. So even if it's specific to one community, pass it along. We'll make sure it gets in the hopper. We'll make sure that the right resources are put around to it. And then last but not least, as you're looking to have questions answered or to direct people that might be asking you, there's a variety of resources online. First and foremost, for the media campaign, it's all about rockready.com. That's media specific, but again, that's just a vanity URL to drive traffic to our main mothership, which is rockcountyalliance.com. That carries most of the market information, the lion's share of the statistics, mapping, you name it. If the stat's not out there, if it's not updated, we probably don't know about it yet, but we try to keep that page updated either weekly, monthly, quarterly. Sometimes the information's only semi-annual, and worse yet, sometimes it's only annual. But we try to do a nice job of taking that entire universe of information, putting it into a single funnel, and making sure that it's in a format that's understandable and digestible. Now, for some, it may be a little top-heavy, just because there's a lot of statistics, but if you know what you're looking for and you know how to make short work, within 3 clicks or less, I can guarantee you're going to find it. And then last but not least, on the overall plan, again, this is about the implementation. This represents one component of our 5-pronged strategy under Rock County 5.0. But if you have questions or want to have an update on how things are going on the overall plan, certainly you can jump into rockcounty5.com. So at this point, we'll open it up to any questions that you may have. Whether it's general in nature or specific, we'll try to do our best to answer it. I'm going to try to act as MC here in terms of fielding the question, so I may answer it or I may turn it over to one of our colleagues here.
Mine's more of a comment than a question, and it's more of a comment about your leave behind. I think it's great that you have that tagline of that we're ready, and the aspects of ready to grow, ready to connect, ready to build, ready to work. I mean, it basically tells anybody who's looking to do anything that we're ready no matter what, quote, excuse you might have. So I think that's an awesome strategy as it relates to whatever angle they may be looking at it. I think it addresses it very nicely in this particular piece.
Thank you. That was the intention. So we're glad that it's at least hitting that mark right now. Anybody else?
Has there been a tie-in with the state tourism as far as have they wanted to team up at all, or being the gateway to Wisconsin on I-90? Has that been looked at or talked about?
And to answer your question is, we're certainly exploring the opportunities right now. To put it bluntly, we wanted to make sure we had our oar out in the water first. And when and where appropriate, we'll hitch those wagons together and make sure that we're moving in concert towards that. But those opportunities we think are going to materialize as we move forward. The lion's share of our connectivity or active cooperative outreach will be done with the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation primarily. Anybody else?
I was going to keep quiet, but I'm just going to say one thing. First of all, it's great to see our senator and our representative here. And on behalf of Rock County 5.0, the message is just really clear. I mean, there is no way that this team can do what they need to do without all of you. And, you know, it takes guts and it takes, you know, some resolve, I think, sometimes to make these decisions that you just aren't completely sure are the right ones at the time, but you've got to have faith. And again, thank you for the support that you all give. It means a lot, and it means a lot to this community. But I want all of you to know what an amazing team of talent we have here. When Diane and I first started working with this group, we weren't quite sure because they were all kind of coming at different angles. And to watch this group bring all of their talents to the table and just their knowledge and their connections, it's phenomenal. And you know, I've told some of the county board supervisors as well, as with respect to James, this is amazing talent. And you know, along with all the other economic development folks at our city levels, but to have this team really leading the charge, we are very fortunate. So the county is in great hands.
Thank you, Mary. One last comment from me, and then that's it. The key thing to remember about economic development is that it's a process of elimination, and perception as much as reality matters. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why we have both a targeted approach and a little bit wider scope on that. That's why we have picked the targets that we have, and that's why we're using expert talent when and where appropriate. We have to make sure that we're attacking both the perception side of the equation as well as reality. And sometimes it gets real blurry out there, and you get a lot of noise in terms of who's shouting the loudest and what they're shouting about. And quite honestly, you get buried by larger budgets out there. But now that things are starting to move in the right direction, we're starting to get some real good traction out of it. There's been some significant investment in our particular marketplace. Andrew spoke about just some of that briefly. Over 30 projects since 2010, about $600 million in new capital investment, 3 million square feet either absorbed and or constructed, and then about 1,500 jobs will be added by the time all those projects come online. That's significant. If you look at some of the real estate transactions, both from a leasing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, they rank right up there with the Chicagoland area. They may not be the top 5, but they're certainly in the top 20 or top 10, depending on what time frame you look at, whether it's on a quarterly basis or on a calendar basis. So there are things that are positive here. We need to make sure that that message gets out. We need to make sure that folks on the outside in that realize that we're certainly open for business. We've got a deep bench behind us in terms of the people that sit in your respective capacities, as well as people in Mary's positions that we can draw upon. And again, we can't thank you enough for not only tonight's forum and your ability to be flexible, but obviously all the things you've done to date and those that you'll do in the future to help make our jobs easier. So thank you.
James, I had a question or maybe an observation. Maybe it's in some of the details that you went through here, or didn't go through, but it would certainly seem to me that one of the advantages that we have in Wisconsin generally, and in Rock County specifically, is water. Access to water at a reasonable rate that's clean. Increasingly, the East Coast, the West Coast, water problems everywhere. I mean, we've got a drought going on now, but is that one of the factors that you list as a drawing point? Because to me, it's going to become more and more critical as time goes by.
Just to repeat the question. The question was specific about what about the values or attributes of specific pieces of infrastructure, particularly water, and is that part of our messaging? The short answer is yes. We try to tailor that message to whoever the particular audience is. For those that are capital intensive and have a lot of energy as well as other utility needs, we certainly bring those talking points out. And when folks start doing some of that bottom line comparisons between location A and location B, those wastewater treatment rates, pre-treatment costs, as well as the water costs, either on a monthly or annual basis, those things are crunched. The fact that we're sitting on top of a very large aquifer for a long term certainly positions us better than other locations. That also brings in some other dynamics when you get into talking about land use and specific resource utilization. But long story short, particular industries, whether they're in food processing or metal fabrication, rely heavily upon the water as one of their main supply chain inputs. So yes. Right. Anything else? Again, can't thank you enough for your time, for the forum tonight, and again, always appreciate your support, so thank you.